class online. Today we are going to be talking about native son Richard Wright and his literature in English. But then, from our previous class, we introduced our viewers to the book proper. We made them understand everything that the book stood for. And like from what we said in the other class, that the book is all about black and white oppression, racism, what blacks faced in the hands of whites because of the color of their skin. And then we looked into two factors that this effect of racism has on these black people. We said it turns them into an oppressed group of people. They become oppressed, they become vulnerable, they are left with nothing. And then we also made our viewers to understand that racism has turned most blacks into criminals, not because they wanted to be criminals, but because of what the society gave to them. They had no option than to resort to crime as a way to pay back the white population for melting such injustice on them. But today, we're going to be looking at the narrative proper. We're going to be looking at all the intrigues, all the dramas that led to the murder of Mary Dalton, a native son. And initially, we introduced you to a character, a very notable character. In fact, he is the main character in this work of art. And we said his name is Bigger Thomas. You might wonder why I wrote this name as bold as this. Now, Bigger Thomas represents a whole lot of things. He represents the entire black population. Black population. Now, I make bold to say that he represents the entire black population because Bigger Thomas in this book portrays everything, all the problems, all the sufferings that a black person living in a white community faces. And so Richard Wright has been able to use this character to shed light on the sufferings of blacks who are being dealt with untold punishments everywhere racism is being practiced. And we said we are going to divide our work of art into 4 places. The first one is fear, the second one is flight, the third one is fate, and then the last one it's 3 though. The first one is flight, fear, and fate. Now we're going to be looking at what really led to all the dramas that happened in this book. First of all, we're meant to understand that Bigger Thomas was brought up in a very substandard environment. A very bad, when I mean substandard, I mean an environment that is filled with abject poverty. His family is poor. In fact, the book shares light that he wakes up in a dark, small room at the sound of an alarm clock. He lives in one room with his brother, Buddy, his sister Vera, and their mother. Imagine 4 people living in a small room. You can imagine how the conditions is for them. And they are very poor persons. That is what the book made us to understand. And we also see that in that same room, everything they need, the room serves as the sitting room for them, it serves as a bedroom to them, it serves as everything for them in that small, tiny room they are living. And we also see that because Bigger does not know how to respond to his frustrations and all that, he simply decides to take a job as what? As a chauffeur, as a driver, to drive a white family. And he's mandated to drive a girl called Mary Dalton. Now she's the girl that Bigger accidentally killed. We're going to find out why and how Bigger killed Mary Dalton. Now, the book tells us that Mary had a boyfriend called John. He was a communist. It's these people that shares the idea that we should have a classless society. Now, a classless society is a society where all the resources and wealth are equally distributed among everybody. It's not a society where one feels is better than one, but rather a society where everybody is equal and all the resources are distributed among each other. And that is the ideology that John represents. And then we were told that they went out to drink. Herself, Mary, and her boyfriend John. They went to drink. And then coming back, Mary closed her Bigger's hand while Mrs. Dalton is in the room, trying to alert Bigger that she cannot breathe. She went for a drinking night. She came back. Her boyfriend left her already. Bigger drove her home. On getting home, Bigger, as a gentleman, took Mary to the room to drop her in the bedroom. But on getting there, now Mrs. Dalton is Mary's mother. She's blind, she can't see. So she comes to the room to check on her daughter, but she could smell. So she said, the book says, there's a smell of whiskey in the room. Mary's mother could perceive a smell of whiskey in the room. But Mary herself is gasping for air. She's suffocating. And Mrs. Dalton approached the bed, smells the whiskey, scolds the daughter, and leaves. Because she's blind, she doesn't know what is happening. She doesn't know the condition her daughter is in. And she doesn't know that Bigger is in that same room with Mary. And Bigger could not, that is why we titled this part of the book, Fear. Bigger could not tell the mother, see what is happening. The mother will not believe. The mother would always believe that it's the nigger, the black man, that is responsible for the problem of the daughter. So he had to lay low until the woman left. Now when the woman left, Bigger removes the pillow and places it on Mary's face. He realizes that Mary has suffocated. He starts thinking frantically, thinking of what to do. And he decides he will tell everyone that John, Mary's communist boyfriend, took her out that night. So he was going to frame her up for the murder of Mary. Now what did he do? He killed Mary. After killing Mary, he broke Mary's leg, put her in the house furnace. Furnace is like an oven where they put fire to warm up the house. He put the girl there, put in enough fire, and allowed her to burn. But he knew that he could not fix her in very well. So he had to cut some part of her body to fix her inside the furnace so she could burn to death. And at the end of the day, he would leave everything to be framed up that it was all John's handwork. And remember, we said John was Mary's boyfriend. And after doing that, Bigger leaves for home. Now, Bigger's current girlfriend, her name is Bessie. On returning home, Bessie suspects Bigger that Bigger has done something funny with the way he was acting. Now, Mr. Dalton has called a private detective to find out what actually happened to his daughter. Now, the detective interrogates Bigger accusingly, but Mr. Dalton vouches for Bigger because Bigger is a quiet person. He doesn't make trouble. He's always on the good side. So the man was like, no, this guy, he doesn't even talk. He's very calm. So I'm not sure he's the one that did something wrong. The private detectives said, okay, no wahala. And Bigger relates the events of the previous evening in a way to throw calculated suspension on John. Now after throwing the suspension on John, Mary's boyfriend, the investigator shoved everything down his throat and was like, okay, no problem. Let's see who is actually responsible for this death. It could not be this nigger. But ordinarily, because he is black, the private investigator believed that he should be the first suspect for the murder. But Mr. Dalton, who was his employer, know that, okay, this man has been working for me. I can at least vouch for him. I said, no, let him stay, let him be. Don't point accusing fingers at him. Now, Bigger leaves the Dalton's house after that incident, and he decides to write a false kidnap note when he discovers that the owner of the rat-infested flat his family rents is from Mr. Dalton. Unknown to him, the rat-infested house himself and his family is living is owned by Mr. Dalton. Now, Bigger slips the note under the Dalton's front door and then returns to his room. Now, when Mr. Dalton receives the note, he contacted the police, who took over the investigation from Mr. Brayton. Mr. Brayton was the first private investigator hired to investigate the death of Mary. Now, in the afternoon, Bigger is ordered to take out ashes from the furnace, from the oven, and make a new fire. But he's afraid, he's terrified, and he starts throwing ashes with the shovel until the whole room is full of smoke. Now, angrily, one of the journalists takes the shovel from Bigger and pushes him away, and immediately finds the remains of Mary's body and bones and earrings inside the furnace. Now on seeing this, Bigger runs for his life. He flees. Now Bigger does not run home. He went to his girlfriend. He ran to his girlfriend and told his girlfriend everything that happened. Now the girlfriend realized that white people would think he raped the girl before killing her, so they left together. But Bigger has to drag his girlfriend around because she is paralyzed by fear. Now when they were in an abandoned building, something came over Bigger again. He raped his own girlfriend. In the morning, he decided that he has to kill her in her sleep because she already knows something about him. So Bigger took something and a stick and hit his girlfriend in the head several times, and the girl died. Now he quickly realized that the only money he had was in her pocket. So he went and took the money from the girl's pocket and started to run away. Now this time, he goes round and round, like he doesn't have a specific place to run to. But unfortunately for him, as he's running, he keeps seeing newspaper headlines concerning the crime that he has committed and overhears different conversations about it. Now he sees the hatred on the papers, on how white people hate him, and they are so desperate to get a hand on him and do something bad to him. And he also sees how his black people are not happy with him. The blacks are angry at his actions because he has caused a lot of shame to them. So after a wide chase, after running around the village, eventually the police got hold of him. Now during his first days in prison, Bigger does not eat, drink or talk with anyone. So then John comes to visit Bigger, and then John tells Bigger that he has learnt a lot from him, especially black and white relationship, how blacks deals with white, and so he's offering to help him. Very sympathetic. And John brings a communist lawyer known as Mas to represent Bigger in prison. Now, if he considers his attitude about white people, whether they are like Britain or accepting John. Now, Bigger has been through a lot from the hands of whites. So now John is coming to offer him a help to leave prison. So he begins to consider, are whites different or everybody's like Britain? Remember we said Britain is the private investigator that Mr. Dalton hired. And on seeing Bigger, Mr. Dalton didn't have any doubts that it was Bigger that committed the murder. He was the first suspect. But John, on the other hand, is being understanding and accepting. So Bigger is having a conflict of emotions, like, what is happening? Are everybody like Britain, or there are some whites that actually like John? Now Bigger is found guilty and is sentenced to death for murder. Bigger Thomas is a poor, uneducated 20-year-old black man in 1930s Chicago who wakes up one morning in a cramped room, like we said, a rat-infested room he was living with his parents. And he goes out to find job, to find a means of livelihood, only for him to end up with a low-paying labor at the Dalton's family. Couple of weeks on getting the job, before you know what is happening, Bigger commits a crime. He kills Mr. Dalton's only daughter, Mary. After killing her, he decapitates her body, puts her into a burning furnace, and runs away. He goes to confess his mother to his girlfriend, Bessie. Because he knows Bessie knows something he doesn't want the outside world to know, he also kills Bessie. Bigger has committed a lot of murder to cover. He committed one murder. He committed another one to cover up again. And then the book makes us understand that when Bigger's story got to public ear, people were not happy with him. Two people were not happy with him. The whites were not happy with him. The blacks too were not happy with him. Now, what was the blacks' anger with him? Because Bigger had brought shame to the black community. The black already had enough prejudice, enough of racism to deal with from the whites. And now adding to it that a black committed a crime in a white and black environment brings more shame and more reproach on the black. Now the whites, they hate him, they want to hunt him down for killing one of their own. So these were all the problems that Bigger Thomas found himself in the book Native Son. Now Bigger is not a hero by any means. He is not a hero. He didn't do anything that is heroic. Killing a white girl doesn't make him a hero. But Richard Wright opens our mind to the plight of Bigger, a black 20-year-old man. He said he's poor, he's uneducated, he's living in a squalid condition. His his family of 4, is living in a very small, tiny, rat-infested room. Now, while we're not trying to justify his actions, the author is trying to make us understand the background that led to this ugly narrative in this book, that led to the ugly actions of Bigger Summers. And Native Son himself, who is Bigger, a native son, is a product of American culture and violence that comes with it. Remember, we said the book is, the setting of the book is in Southside Chicago. Now, the author is making us to understand now that the reasons why Bigger's life was full of these up and downs was as a result of the racism that was prevalent in the system or in the area that he grew up. Now we're going to be looking at some themes, some very important themes in this book. Now the first one is the effect of racism on the oppressed. The effect of racism on the oppressed. The effect of racism on the oppressed is not a fine one, it's not a friendly one at all, it's not a sweet experience, it's a bitter one. Now racism has turned the blacks, the oppressed, into less than humans. They take up cheap labor. They do all kinds of things that they are not supposed to do to survive, because there's a huge discrimination between them and the white. They live in squalid conditions. There's a stereotype that they cannot be accepted in the society. And how does this turn out for them? Most of them resort to violence. Now racism has become a very bad thing to them. Now it brings out a resultant effect, and the resultant effect is that these blacks, most of them, not all of them, resort to violence as a means of paying the whites back for racism on them. Now the whites too, there's also who is called the oppressor. There are also effects for them too. Now the effect is destructive for both groups, both the oppressed and the oppressor. And the oppressor faces effects because in the book, Mary Dalton is a white. She wasn't a black, she's a white, yes, she was killed. As a result of what? The unfair treatment that is our color. People of our color were melting to the black, resulted in her death. So the oppressor too had a lot to face and to deal with from all that racism had to offer. Now, the book also portrayed communism. How beautiful the communist idea is. People like John represented the communist idea. They felt that, yes, we can be able to have a classless society, a society that does not believe in the fact that you are black or white, rich or poor, but rather a society that sees everyone as one and equals, and we can all do things together. Communist idea was portrayed in the book. And lastly, there is the hypocrisy of justice. There is no justice for the black. The justice system for the black is not compared to what you have for the white. Now, the white had more to benefit. The blacks didn't have anything to benefit. Because why? If you look at what happened in the case of the private investigator and Bigger Thomas, if Biggie was a white man, the private investigator would not have really called him a murderer. But simply because of his color, he already wrote him off that he would be responsible for the crime. So, this is all about Native Son. And like we've made us to understand, Native Son is about white and black oppression. Until then, thanks for listening to our class today. We'll see you in our next class.